Okay, let's unpack this one. Imagine a clandestine network, right? Operating totally in plain sight, but completely transforming how products move, how they get around a major city. Today, we're taking a deep dive into bustdownboys, Houston's covert cannabis empire. We're basing this on our source material from nuggnotes, that underground publication. They do some really solid investigative pieces on the cannabis market. And that name, Bust Down, we'll get into it, but it really came to signal like their commitment to quality, breaking open new stuff. So our mission here is to figure out how they built this network, not a fan base, how they blurred that line between brand or trap, and really why their whole model is so interesting for you.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. I mean, how they completely defy traditional distribution is key. Truly operating with, and this is a quote, no storefront, no faces, just motion.
Just motion, wow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And their stated mission, pretty straightforward, flood the city with flavor. And, their early impact, it was pretty significant. They were apparently the first pick of Alien Labs in the whole H. That's Houston.
Big name, Alien Labs.
Huge. And they were offering stuff like Real Z, which means Skittles, West Coast exotics, and these highly sought-after rosin carts. That's that top-tier solventless extract stuff you didn't typically see it on Texas menus at all.
Right, that no storefront, no faces thing. It sounds incredibly bold, almost reckless.
Yeah.
But how did they even start getting customers or manage the logistics, staying invisible? What was the secret there? Getting those first people on board, building that trust.
Well, that's where their digital side, their evolution there really came into play. Pretty clever, actually. By 2024, they launched this site, and it was slick, clean layout, daily menus, plus these private Telegram alerts.
Telegram, exclusive.
Exactly. It wasn't just about being stealthy. It really cultivated this insider vibe, and their pickup process, totally unique. Well, pickups ran 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Pretty wide window. But get this, they required a FaceTime to verify.
FaceTime? Seriously?
Yeah. And the whole philosophy behind it was, you're not shopping. You're getting tapped in. So that approach, it really fostered this feeling of belonging to a select group. A network.
That FaceTime to verify detail is wild. It's like a modern secret handshake or something.
Yeah.
What did that signal to people beyond just, security? How did that make them different?
It screamed trust and exclusivity, right? If you got verified, you were in. You were part of the inner circle. And if we connect that to the bigger picture, their growth wasn't just about being discreet. It was fundamentally about strategic partnerships. Those amplified the exclusivity even more.
Okay, so partnerships were key.
Definitely. In 2025, they linked up with this female-owned brand, My Edible Dealer. They did these 200 milligrams solventless gummies, and they made a point of saying they were girl-led, bust-down stamped. And then, March 2025, there was the Tenko collab. That brought blue zushi packs, another really prized strain, into Texas. And this wasn't just, a simple team-up. The source described it as a real rout. It genuinely put Houston on in a major way in the cannabis world.
Okay, so they've got these big partnerships,
Yeah.
bringing in top shelf stuff. But in an unregulated market, how did bustdownboys make sure the quality, the consistency was actually there? What made them stand out?
Right, because that's crucial. Their whole product philosophy was super rigorous. They stressed just iced out packs, meaning perfectly cured, top-tier flower covered in crystals, and no water terps, so you get that full undiluted flavor profile, and absolutely no middlemen.
Direct sourcing.
Exactly, straight from the big names. 710 Labs, Preferred Garden, Alien Labs. Plus, they had this strict last jar policy. If you missed the drop, it was gone. Poof. Created incredible demand,
So they were doing drops like streetwear, menus like mixtapes. That's actually brilliant. Creates that buzz, that FOMO. Turns the product into almost a cultural thing. And cash rules sounds a bit old school, but maybe necessary for their setup.
Probably both.
This mix of covert ops and super savvy branding is just fascinating. For an operation built on secrecy, having such a loud brand feels like a huge gamble. How did they balance that? The need for discretion with this really aggressive marketing push.
That's a great point. And this careful branding, it's critical because it tackles that very ambiguity of what they were doing. It brings us to that core question. How did they blur the lines so effectively between being a brand or trap?
Right.
I mean, the source points out their branding was louder than half the dispos in Cali. Think about that. They built up this powerful if you know kind of ethos. The implication being, if you didn't know, well, you'd find out when your product turned out to be, quote, mid.
Mm.
So this paradox being allowed while operating covertly, it really highlights something key. In a market that runs on trust and exclusivity, a really strong aspirational brand can actually work against the idea of it being illicit. It signals premium quality, authenticity to the people they want it to reach.
So what we've really seen here is a masterclass. Covert operations meeting super smart branding. They created this underground empire that really prioritized, uncompromised quality and this exclusive experience for you, the customer who's looking for that top tier.
Yeah, and consider this. In a world that seems to be craving authenticity, craving direct access, how many other industries, maybe completely legitimate ones, could be, well, disrupted by adopting a similar model? That no cap, just packs, or no fluff, just the real product approach. Focusing on the network over the big, fancy storefront makes you wonder where else that could actually work.